Hello, everyone, and thank you for joining with my story today, Ada Twist, Scientist. I'm Miss Standring, and this is one of my favourite stories because it's about a very curious girl. It's written by Andrea Beattie and it's illustrated by David Roberts. Ada Marie, Ada Marie, said not a word to the day she turned 3. She bounced in her crib and looked all around, observing the world, but not making a sound. She learned how to climb and made her big break, with a trail of chaos left in her wake. She ran through the day chasing each sound in sight, and didn't slow down till she conked out at night. And there she is in her bedroom, and she's on the top of the drawers, fast asleep. And you can see her bedroom is in a terrible mess with all the playing and chasing she's been doing. And there's her brother saying, "Here is Ada Marie." Her parents were frazzled, but tried not to freak, as Ada grew bigger and still did not speak. Clearly young Ada, with lots in her head, would have something to say when it ought to be said. And her parents are a bit worried because Ada still isn't speaking. She's not talking. That's just what happened when Ada turned 3. She tore through the house on a fact-finding spree. She climbed up the clock just as high as she could. Her parents yelled, "Stop!" as all good parents would. Ada's chin quivered, but she did not cry. She took a deep breath and she simply asked, "Why?" That's Ada's first word. She's a very curious girl, and her first word is why. She's asking questions. Why does it tick and why does it tock? Why don't we call it a granddaughter clock? Why are there pointy things stuck to a rose? Why are there hairs up the inside of your nose? She started with why and then what, how, and when. By bedtime she came back to why once again. She drifted to sleep as her dazed parents smiled at the curious thoughts of their curious child, who wanted to know what the world was about. They kissed her and whispered, "You'll figure it out." And there she is, being very curious, asking lots of questions about how things work and why things happen. Lots and lots of great questions. And here we can see she keeps asking so many different questions. Why? What? How? When? Her parents kept up with their high-flying kid, whose questions and chaos both grew as she did. Even Miss Greer found her hands were quite full when young Ada's chaos wreaked havoc at school, but this much was clear about Miss Ada Twist. She had all the great traits of a great scientist. And there is Ada Marie at school doing some science experiments. The teacher looks a bit worried, I think, about all the mess that's being created, but the children are cheering. They're loving all of the great scientific experiments that Ada is doing at school. Ada was busy that first day of spring, testing the sounds that made mockingbirds sing, when a horrible stench whacked her right in the nose, a pungent aroma that curled up her toes. "Zowie," said Ada, which got her to thinking, "what is the source of that terrible stinking? How does the nose know there's something to smell? And does it still stink if there's no nose to tell?" She rattled off questions and tapped on her chin. She'd start at the start where she ought to begin. A mystery, a riddle, a puzzle, a quest. This was the moment that Ada loved best. And if you're having a good look at the pictures there, I wonder if you can find out the answer to Ada's question. What is the source of that terrible stinking? Where do you think that terrible be coming from. I'm wondering if it's coming from the shoes of her big brother who's just been playing tennis. What do you think? So here's Ada, and now she's going to be testing about smells and stinking. Ada did research to learn all she could of smelling and smells, both the stinky and good. One hypothesis Ada thought could be true. The terrible stink came from Dad's cabbage stew. She tested and tested, but soon Ada knew it was time to come up with hypothesis 2. So she has her scientific question, where did that stink, that smell come from? Her first hypothesis, she thought it was from Dad's cabbage stew, and she tested that. She's realised she's wrong, so she's going to come up with a second hypothesis. Where is that stink coming from? Then Zowie, the stink struck again, just like that. Hypothesis 2, it's caused by the cat. The cat couldn't make such a stink on its own. It needed perfume and some fancy cologne, so young Ada tested. The test was a flop. She started again, but her parents yelled, "Stop!" What's Ada doing? She's trying to wash all of the cologne and perfume off the cat. She's going to put it in the washing machine. That's not a very good place to put your cat. Thank goodness her parents have stopped her. They don't look very happy here at all, do they? Look at how they're pointing to her, and look at how Ada's looking. She's walking away, looking very upset. I wonder why they're so upset with Ada. Ada Marie, to the thinking chair now by the time we count 3. Enough, said her mother. That's it, said her dad. Her parents were frustrated, frazzled, and mad. Why? Ada questioned. Her mother said, no. What? Ada queried. Her father said, go. You've ruined our supper. You've made the cat stink. Enough with your questions. Now sit there and think. She looked at her parents. Her heart turned to goo. Poor Ada Twist didn't know what to do. Oh gosh, they're very upset with her because of her experiments have spoiled the dinner and made the cat stink. So now she's got to go into this chair and think. Oh dear, poor Ada. She sat all alone by herself in the hall, and Ada once more could say nothing at all. And there she is, sitting and thinking. But we know Ada Marie. We know she's a curious girl. So I wonder what's going to happen next. I wonder what she's thinking about. And there she is. She's thinking still about what that terrible stink is and where it is coming from. And so Ada sat, and she sat, and she sat and she thought about science and stew and the cat, and how her experiments made such a big mess. Does it have to be so? Is that part of success? Our mess is a problem. And while she was thinking, what was the source of that terrible stinking? Ada Marie did what scientists do. She asked a small question, and then she asked 2, and each of those led her to 3 questions more, and some of those questions resulted in 4. As Ada got thinking, she really dug in. She scribbled her questions and tapped on her chin. She started at why, and then what, how, and when. And at the end of the hall, she reached why once again. And she's trying to work out the cause of that stinking. And look at what she's done now. She's done her experiments and trying to work it out and solving of what's happening. And she's done lots of drawings to try and work it out. Her parents calmed down and they came back to talk. They looked at the hallway and just had to gawk. No patch of bare paint could be seen on the wall. The thinking chair now was the great thinking hall. They watched their young daughter and sighed as they did. What would they do with this curious kid? who wanted to know what the world was about. They smiled and whispered, "We'll figure it out." And the parents don't seem to be very upset about all the writing on the wall. I think I would be very upset if all that happened on the wall. I think if you're going to be working out some science experiments, you get your notebook out or some paper and you work it out on that. That's the best place for working out science experiments. And that's what they did, because that's what you do when your kid has a passion and a heart that is true. They remade their world. Now they're all in the act of helping young Ada sort fiction from fact. She asks lots of questions. How could she resist? It's all in the heart of a young scientist. And there she is, working out and asking questions and trying different ways of solving her questions. And her parents and brother, they're helping out too. As for that smell, what can Ada Twist do but learn all she can with her friends in grade 2? Will they discover the stink that curls toes? Well, that is the question. And someday, who knows? And if you enjoyed that story about Ada Twist the scientist, you might enjoy these 2 books here. We've got Rosie Revere, Engineer, and Iggy Peck, Architect, and they're in the same series as Ada Twist. If you see me at school, maybe you could invite me into your classroom and I could read one of them to you, because I've got both of these books at school. Thank you so much for joining in with my share of story. I hope you enjoyed that book just as much as I did. Take care and have a great rest of your day.